For 30 years, Wichita, Kansas suffers at the hands of a faceless and brutal killer who binds, suffocates, and strangles his victims.
Both of our parents slaughtered right there on the ground, you know? Tied up like pigs, man.
But in 2005, a suspect is arrested, and 7 families hope they'll finally get justice for their loved ones.
He said, "How many more people do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper?"
But the man on the stand is not what they'd expected.
And he was a decent, nice-looking, tall man.
This is the man accused of being the notorious serial killer who called himself BTK, for bind, torture, and kill. January 15th, 1974, in Wichita, Kansas. 14-year-old Danny Otero walks home from school with his 13-year-old sister, Carmen. They live with their parents, Julie and Joseph, older brother Charlie, and younger brother and sister, Joey and Josephine.
My sister and I were coming home from school. We just moved to the area. We'd only been there maybe a month. She was ahead of me. She went in first. I went right behind her. She went on into the hallway. I stopped in the kitchen. I believe I was opening the fridge. I heard her screaming. I said, "Danny, Danny, something's wrong." And she goes, "It's Mom and Dad." I saw my dad's body laying in the doorway inside the bedroom. He had a belt around his neck. And then I looked over to my right, and I realized my mom was there too, and I said, "Oh no, man, look, this is bad." I was trying to do something. It didn't take more than 5 seconds to realize he was dead. Both of our parents slaughtered right there on the ground, you know? Tied up like pigs, man. Brutally murdered.
Danny tries to call for help, but the line is dead. Afraid someone's still in the house, he drags his sister outside and runs to a neighbor's to call police. There's still no sign of Joey and Josephine.
So they take us downtown, and we're in the police station, and a priest comes in the room. And I almost knew what he was gonna say.
Police find 9-year-old Joey in another bedroom, suffocated. They find his 11-year-old sister, Josephine, in the basement. She has been hanged from pipes. Semen was found on the floor beside her. It was a case that horrified Wichita. Police scour the Otero home, but find very little to go on. In 1974, DNA analysis is still in its infancy, but the semen found near Josephine's body is recovered and preserved. Then, 9 months later, a Wichita newspaper is sent a chilling letter that claims responsibility for the Otero killings and describes the murder scene in vivid detail. And what's written next is terrifying.
When this monster entered my brain, I will never know, but it's here to stay.
The letter suggests that this is just the beginning.
He has already chosen his next victim or victims. I don't know who they are yet. Good luck hunting. The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them. BTK. They will be on the next victim.
But then all goes quiet. It will be 3 years before the killer would resurface. March 17, 1977. 6-year-old Steve Relford is on his way home to his brother and sister and his mother, Shirley Vian.
My mom sent me to the store to get a can of soup because she was sick. And on my way back, this guy stopped me. Showed me a picture of this woman and this boy and asked me, did I know who it was? I said, no, sir, I don't. So I went on to my house and he went to my neighbor's house.
But the man is watching where Steve goes. He knows the young boy's mother must be at home.
About 15 minutes later, he come knocking on my door. I opened the door. He asked, is your parents home? I said, my mom, she's sick in bed. And he proceeded to come on in.
The man pulls the blinds and pulls out a gun.
About that time, my mom come to the door, and Mom said, do what he says.
Steve and his brother and sister are locked in the bathroom. One door tied shut, the other barricaded by the bed.
I stood on the bathtub and looked over the door. There was like a crack in the top of the door where I could see. And I wish I hadn't.
Steve watches as the man ties his mother's hands and feet. Places a bag over her head, a cord around her neck, and suffocates and strangles her.
I knew my mom was dead. I didn't talk for like 2 years afterward. I miss her very much.
Steve would have to wait almost 3 decades, not knowing who was responsible for killing his mother. But it would be just 8 months before the killer in Wichita strikes again. Four years after the brutal murder of the Otero family, and 8 months after Shirley Vian is suffocated, there's another killing in Wichita. 25-year-old Nancy Fox is found in her home, strangled with a belt. Soon afterwards, the Wichita Eagle receives a poem in the Post that mentions both Shirley Vian and Nancy Fox.
He said, how many more people do I have to kill before I get my name in the paper? When you read something like that, then you know you really have a serial killer right in your midst.
The letter claims responsibility for the killing of Shirley Vian and Nancy Fox. He then suggests he should have a nickname.
How about some name for me? It's time. I like the following: the BTK Strangler, Wichita Strangler.
Up to this point, the people of Wichita have been kept in the dark. But now, police announce there's a serial killer on the loose who calls himself BTK, and he's threatened to strike again. For the people of Wichita, it's terrifying.
Stores sold out of locks. Gun sales went up. People were scared. If you used to leave your front door open, you didn't leave your front door open anymore.
The trail goes cold again. BTK's correspondence with the police and media stops. It's 8 years before he strikes again. In 1985, the body of 53-year-old Marina Hedge is found dumped in a ditch at the side of the road. A year later, 28-year-old mother of 2, Vicki Wegerly, is strangled with a pair of nylon stockings in her own home. And in 1991, 62-year-old Dolores Davis's body is found under a bridge, with knotted pantyhose and a freakish mask by her side. All of the victims had been strangled, but the police do not connect them to the BTK killer. And unlike before, he didn't write to claim responsibility. He'll remain silent for another 13 years.
Our conversations up here would be, where do you think this guy is? Maybe he died. Maybe somebody committed him. Maybe he's just still walking around out there.
But he would not stay quiet forever. Suddenly, correspondence from BTK is cropping up everywhere, and it's even more bizarre than before.
He would put them into cereal boxes, as in serial killer. He would dress a doll up in there to resemble the victim, and he would put little trophies that he might have collected.
Then in January 2005, police get a possible break. They find one package containing a note with a very naive question.
If I send you a disc, be honest with me, will you be able to trace it back to me?
The police can't quite believe it. They reply to BTK, as they had done many times before, by posting an ad in the newspaper. Just maybe he'll fall for it. Incredibly, on February 16th, a local TV station receives a floppy disk in the mail. Police quickly get to work analyzing it.
Inside there are the codes showing the name of the person who had copied materials to that disc, the location where he had been when he had done it.
The name they find is Dennis. The location, the Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita. An internet search quickly determines that a Dennis Rader is president of the church council.
And up he pops, and there's his picture on this church website.
Finally armed with the name and face of their prime suspect, police will uncover shocking details of Dennis Rader's bizarre double life. Police have identified Dennis Rader as their prime suspect in the BTK killings. Rader lives with his wife and 2 children in a normal house on this normal street in Park City. He's president of the church council, and he's a Cub Scout leader. He seems like a model citizen. But police are confident he's their man. Now to prove it, they need forensic evidence. They need his DNA.
And he couldn't really walk up to his front door and say, can you stick out your tongue and let me have a swab of your epithelial cells? So we found that his daughter, she had a procedure where she left stored at the medical center her epithelial cells.
The cells are sent for DNA comparison.
Everything was very, very quiet, very secret. All along, they were watching him 24/7. The excitement was just palpable.
Then, Nola Fulston hears the news she had been waiting for. The DNA is a match.
And the match was that young girl was the daughter of BTK.
Wichita had lived under the shadow of the BTK killer for 30 years. Now, finally, investigators have the proof they need to act. On February 25, 2005, the BTK Strangler, Dennis Rader, is arrested near his home in Park City. Amazingly, the whole thing is caught on police camera.
The bottom line, BTK is arrested.
It's the moment Steve Relford had waited for nearly 30 years.
I said, that's him. That's definitely him. Can't forget that face.
Police search Rader's home, his parents' house, and his office. They uncover a treasure trove of BTK's memorabilia.
He kept all these files. He kept files on everyone, every person he killed.
They also find photographs of the crime scenes and disturbing pictures that Rader had taken of himself.
He would take photographs of himself in women's clothing. And we had pictures of him swinging through the trees, ropes on his neck. He put himself in a grave. He would put a extension cord on a Polaroid camera and pull the flash.
Rader's dark obsession with death and bondage is a secret he had kept from everyone since childhood.
When he was a youngster, he first became sexually aroused watching his grandmother cut the head off a chicken.
By the time he was a freshman or sophomore in high school, he knew what he was, and he knew what his life was going to be.
On March 1st, 2005, Rader is charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder. He doesn't speak at his arraignment, so the judge enters pleas of not guilty. But on June 27th, the first day of Rader's trial, he changes his plea to guilty.
Enter a plea of guilty in this case, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The judge asks Rader to provide details of his crime. What follows is one of the most extraordinary displays ever by a murderer in court.
I told Miss Diane that I had a problem with sexual fantasies. Then I proceeded to tie her up, put a bag over her head and strangled her.
At the trial of the BTK Strangler, the killer himself offers a chilling account of each of his crimes, beginning with the brutal murders of 4 of the Otero family over 30 years earlier.
Did you know these people?
No, that was part of my, I guess my what you call fantasy. I came to the back door, had reservations about even going or just walking away, but pretty soon the door opened and I was in.
Dennis Rader describes how he confronted the family, telling them he just needed their car and some food. If they cooperated, he wouldn't harm them. He took them back to the bedroom, tied them up, and then, one by one, he started to suffocate and strangle them.
First of all, Mr. Otero was strangled. Then I thought he was going down. And I went over and strangled Mrs. Otero.
That man talks so systematic, so like, it was like putting down a pack of dogs.
Mrs. Otero woke back up and, you know, she was pretty upset what's going on. So I came back and at that point in time, strangled her for a death strangle at that time.
The judge takes Rader through each of the 10 alleged murders, including that of Steve Relford's mother, Shirley Vian.
I told Miss Diane that I had a problem with sexual fantasies. Then I proceeded to tie her up. She got sick, threw up, got her a glass of water, comforted her a little bit, and then I went ahead and tied her up and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
Yeah, he had no remorse whatsoever. No remorse, no nothing.
Rader also tells the judge how he'd selected his victims.
Dennis Rader would drive his car down the street and he would see a woman and he would say, "She's the one," and he would point at her. And from that point on, he would concentrate on her. Totally random. If he picked you out, you might be dead.
I will accept these pleas of guilty and adjudge you, Dennis L. Rader, guilty of murder in the first degree and count 1, a Class A felony.
On August 17, 2005, Dennis Rader is back in court for sentencing. There was no death penalty in Kansas at the time of the murders. So, in an unusual move, prosecutor Nola Fulston presents shocking evidence of each murder, determined Rader will get the maximum possible sentence.
It'd be hard for me to be.
It's an ordeal for the victims' families, but it's also an opportunity for them to have their say.
Shirley Vian was my mother. I'd just like for him to suffer for the rest of his life.
This man needs to be thrown in a deep, dark hole and left to rot. He should never, ever see the light of day.
Next, Dennis Rader rises to read a statement he's prepared.
Your Honor, Sedgwick County, victims.
But for this man who craves attention and loves an audience, it won't go the way he'd expected.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, when he started talking, everybody got up and left. I was the first one, and then everybody followed me. We didn't want to hear what he had to say.
It was such a positive statement. We don't need to hear you. I wish I could have gone with him.
Dennis Rader is sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms, requiring a minimum of 175 years without a chance for parole.
His cell is very, very small. None of the accoutrements that a normal citizen would have in their life. And I think that's really good. I wish him longevity.